The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. Not the polite silence of diplomacy, nor the calm of reasoned debate, but the heavy, watchful silence of predators circling one another. The chamber itself floated in orbit over a dying red star, a colossal sphere of crystal and alloy suspended by gravitational anchors. Inside, its vaulted ceiling shimmered with starlight refracted through millions of lenses, painting the floor with a shifting pattern of constellations. The delegates sat in concentric rings, their bodies feathered, scaled, furred, or bioluminescent, arranged in a careful hierarchy of power. At the center hovered the arbiter. The arbiter's form was not so much a body as an ever-shifting prism of light and energy. When it spoke, its voice was not one sound but many overlapping tones that resonated deep in the bones of every listener. Order, it intoned, the word echoing in a dozen alien languages at once. This assembly convenes to address the matter of humanity. A ripple passed through the chamber. For centuries, the Council had managed disputes between civilizations, guided fledgling species toward acceptable progress, and suppressed threats to galactic stability. They had faced rebels, tyrants, even would-be conquerors, but never anything quite like the inhabitants of Sol 3. Present the findings, the arbiter said. A hollow projection flared to life above the central dais. A blue and green sphere rotated in midair, then zoomed outward to show star charts, fleet movements, and planetary networks. A soft mechanical voice narrated the data. Subject species, Homo sapiens. Standard classification, Tier 3 industrial civilization, uplifted to interstellar capability 72 cycles ago. Notable attributes, aggressive expansionism, resource efficiency, and the voice hesitated for the briefest moment, a demonstrated unwillingness to submit to centralized council governance. At the edges of the chamber, several delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Lord Thrynn of the Zolith Combine was first to speak. Its tall, insectoid body clicked and chittered as it rose, mandibles snapping. We have given them decades to integrate, it hissed. We provided them access to the star lanes, the treaties, the protections of our fleets. And still they ignore us. They expand into forbidden sectors, refuse the tariffs, and build weapons without authorization. If this is tolerated, others will follow. The humans are young, countered Sel-Nar, the serpentine delegate of the Vossen hegemony. Youth is volatile. It can be guided. Guided? Thrynn snapped, his antennae flaring. They have ignored every guidance offered. They speak of independence as if such a thing can exist under the Council's authority. If we do not act now, we risk rebellion on a galactic scale. Murmurs spread, rising like a tide. Species who had long feared the Council's iron rule now leaned forward, sensing something different, a weakness, a possibility. The humans were more than a nuisance. They were a precedent. The arbiter's light pulsed, silencing the room. Then we are agreed, it said finally, its voice like the ringing of glass. A final directive will be issued to the human governments. Immediate compliance with Council law, cessation of all unauthorized activity, and dismantling of military infrastructure. Failure to comply will result in full sanction. Full sanction. The words fell like a blade. Full sanction meant fleets. Occupation. Forced submission. No one in the chamber voiced dissent. On Earth, the message arrived less than 24 hours later. Beneath the Pentagon, the Situation Room was a world apart from the glittering halls of the Council. There was no crystal, no starlight, only steel, screens, and the quiet hum of machinery. General Marcus Reynolds stood with his back to the wall, watching as the alien message played on the central display. The arbiter's shimmering form filled the screen, its voice still carrying that otherworldly harmony even through translation. Humans of Earth, it declared, you have been found in violation of Council ordinance. You will dismantle your defense grids, suspend colonization efforts beyond Council-sanctioned zones, and submit to oversight. You have 72 hours to comply. Refusal will result in sanction. The message ended. The room was silent for a long moment, the weight of it settling like ash. President Elizabeth Hayes sat at the head of the table, her hands folded before her. She was a tall, composed woman with silver streaks in her dark hair and eyes that carried the steady calm of someone who had seen the world on fire and refused to look away. "Well," she said finally, her voice level, "they've made their intentions clear." "We can't win a war against them," said Secretary of State Alan Brooks. His voice was tight, almost pleading. "Their fleets outnumber ours 50 to 1. Their technology is centuries ahead. If we fight, we risk total annihilation." Across the table, Admiral Daniel Harlow's jaw tightened. "If we kneel," he said, "we lose everything we've built. Our colonies, our freedom, our right to choose our future. They won't stop at disarming us, they'll keep us in chains forever." Reynolds finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "We've been preparing for this since the day we joined the Council. We knew this day would come. Our carriers are ready. The rail networks are armed. If they come for us, they'll pay for every inch of ground they take." Brooks looked stricken. "You're talking about war with the galaxy." "No," President Hayes said quietly, rising to her feet. Her gaze swept the room, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. "We're talking about survival. Humanity has faced extinction before famine, plague, nuclear fire. And every time, we clawed our way back. We didn't come this far to hand over the keys to our destiny because someone told us we were too small to matter." Her words settled over the room like a spark in dry tinder. The fear didn't vanish, but it hardened into something else, resolve. "Then we refuse," she said simply. "Draft the response. Let the Council know that humanity will not comply." There was a long silence before Reynolds nodded once. "Then we prepare," he said. "Because they won't take no for an answer." Far above Earth, in the black between stars, the first Council strike fleets began to gather. And in the crystal halls of power, as the news of humanity's defiance reached the delegates, a strange and ancient feeling began to take root among them. Fear. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced a species that would not bend. The first shot of the war came without ceremony. Somewhere beyond the dim glow of Proxima Centauri, a single Council patrol ship, a needle-shaped cruiser with obsidian hull plating and a glowing core, locked onto a human freighter convoy. The convoy had been warned not to cross into the restricted sector. They crossed anyway. The patrol ship sent a single, sharp transmission. "Cease propulsion. Submit to boarding. This sector is under Council quarantine." The freighter's captain, a man named Jack Tully with a grizzled beard and more scars than he could count, stared at the blinking transmission light for a long moment. Then he calmly keyed his mic. "This is human territory," he said. "You have no right to stop us." The patrol ship's answer was a charged particle beam, a warning shot that flared past the convoy and lit the void in brilliant blue. Moments later, the human escort, the destroyer UNS Horizon, appeared from behind a drifting asteroid, running silent. Captain Rebecca Vance stood on its bridge, her gloved hands gripping the command rail. She had waited for this moment since the day she'd read the Council ultimatum. "Target their engines," she ordered. The Horizon's railguns fired in eerie silence, spearing the patrol ship with hypersonic slugs. In less than 5 seconds, the Council vessel came apart in a flare of molten metal and venting atmosphere. Vance's transmission went out across every frequency. "This is a warning. No Council vessel is authorized to enter human space. Do so again, and you will not return." And with that, the first blow was struck. News traveled faster than light, or at least as fast as the Council's comm network could broadcast. Within hours, the Grand Chamber was alive with uproar. "They destroyed one of our patrol ships." Envoy Kyth wailed, its gelatinous form quivering so violently it threatened to lose cohesion. "This is not an act of defiance," Lord Thrynn hissed, mandibles clacking. "This is war." The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed darkly. "Then we will give them war," it said. "Prepare the fleets." On Luna Base, the atmosphere was electric. General Marcus Reynolds stood before a wall-sized holomap of the solar system. Red icons marked the edges of human territory, and beyond them, growing clusters of Council ships. "They're massing in 3 sectors," said Commander Sarah Cole, her voice calm but tight. By our estimates, we're looking at 30 capital ships and support craft. That's just the vanguard. 30, Admiral Daniel Harlow muttered. That's more than our entire Mars defense fleet. Reynolds didn't flinch. They expect us to scatter. To panic. That's how they've beaten every species they've ever sanctioned. He turned to face the room, letting the weight of his gaze fall on every officer present. We won't give them that. We hold the line here before they get within range of Mars. General, Cole said carefully, if they breach the line, then we make sure the cost is so high they think twice before coming back. No one spoke after that. The plan was brutal, risky, and very human. When the Council fleets finally arrived, they blotted out the stars. The Jovian system was the chosen battleground, a wide, cold arena where the gas giant storms churned endlessly below and its moons cast long shadows into space. From the bridge of the UNS Resolute, Admiral Harlow watched as the first wave of alien vessels dropped from FTL. Their ships were elegant and terrible, knife-like silhouettes with glowing spinal cannons and swarms of drone craft fanning out like locusts. Enemy fleet count confirmed, the sensor officer reported. 28 cruisers, 8 carriers, and 1 dreadnought-class command ship. Almost polite of them to bring everything at once, Harlow muttered. He keyed the command channel. All ships, this is Admiral Harlow. You know your orders. Hold formation. Make them bleed for every meter they take. The opening salvo lit the void. Council ships struck first, their beam weapons cutting through space like spears of white fire. Several human frigates went up instantly, reduced to molten fragments before they could even maneuver. But then the railguns answered. From behind Europa's shadow, hidden platforms unleashed a storm of tungsten slugs at near relativistic speed. The first salvo tore through the Council's lead cruiser, splitting it in half. The second salvo crippled a carrier before it could launch its full drone complement. And then the carriers appeared. Human Archangel-class carriers, massive black silhouettes, decloaked one by one, launching clouds of strike craft, interceptors and gunships that swarmed like angry hornets, weaving through the gaps in the Council formation. On board the Resolute, Harlow gripped the arm of his command chair. Push them back. Hit their supply barges. Don't let them stabilize the line. The battle raged for hours. Every Council victory was met with a human counterstrike, every destroyed human frigate answered with a Council cruiser turned to slag. The Jovian moons became littered with debris, shattered hulls tumbling silently through the void. And then, when the battle reached its bloodiest point, President Hayes' order came through. Open channel, she said from the Situation Room. Across every frequency, Council and human alike, a single transmission broadcast. This is Earth. We will not kneel. You have crossed into our space, attacked our ships, killed our people. Leave now, or face annihilation. The message was simple, defiant, and terrifying in its calmness. On the bridge of the Council dreadnought, Commander YY Arlak felt something strange as the human transmission ended. It took a moment for him to name the sensation. Unease. For millennia, the Council had faced rebellions, but none had ever dared speak to them this way. None had fought like this. These humans fought with the desperation of a species that had nothing to lose and the skill of one that had been preparing for this day for decades. The Council ships began to withdraw, not in panic, but in measured retreat. They had underestimated humanity once. They would not do so again. When the last enemy ship jumped out of system, silence fell over the comm channels. The void was littered with the dead, human and alien alike, but the line had held. On Luna Base, a cheer went up in the command center. Reynolds didn't cheer. He stood quietly, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the battle report. This was just the first wave, Cole said softly. I know, Reynolds replied. They'll be back. His expression hardened. Next time, we'll be ready. That night, as the battered fleets limped home, a message went out across every human colony, every ship, every outpost on the frontier. We are no longer subjects of the Council. We are free. And we will fight to remain free. Across the galaxy, countless species heard those words, and for the first time in centuries, they began to wonder if perhaps they too could resist. And in the crystal halls of the Grand Chamber, the Arbiter's light flickered darkly. For the first time in its long existence, it considered the unthinkable. What if the Council could be defied? The war was no longer a skirmish, it was a storm consuming the stars. For months, humanity had fought with everything it had. Every shipyard on Earth and Mars worked around the clock. Civilian freighters were converted into gunboats, asteroid mines repurposed into weapons platforms. On every human colony, families huddled in bunkers as Council fleets swept through the outer systems, torching anything that resisted. And yet, humanity endured. For every world lost, they struck back twice as hard. For every fleet they sacrificed, the Council buried 3 of its own. The galaxy had never seen a war like this, a war not for conquest, not for expansion, but for the right to simply exist. But the Council was not finished. When the final ultimatum failed, the Arbiter summoned its last card. From the shipyards of the Tharn Nebula came a weapon unseen in centuries, a dreadnought the size of a small moon, bristling with energy lances powerful enough to shatter entire planets. Its name was Judicator. And it was coming for Titan. The UNS Vanguard had been kept a secret for over a decade, a project so classified that even most senior officers didn't know it existed. Forged in the cold reaches of the Kuiper Belt, its hull stretched for kilometers, its silhouette a cathedral of war bristling with guns. Now it waited in the shadow of Titan, engines cold, hull dark. On the command deck, General Marcus Reynolds stood at the central console, hands clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the tactical display. His face was hard, but the weight of the months-long war showed in the lines around his eyes. "How long until they're in range?" he asked. 17 minutes, Commander Sarah Cole replied, her voice low but steady. "Their escorts are fanning out ahead of the dreadnought. Looks like they're sweeping for ambushes." "They'll find one," Reynolds said grimly. He turned to Admiral Daniel Harlow, who stood at his shoulder. "You have the con, Admiral. When this starts, it's your fight." Harlow nodded once, jaw set. "Aye, sir." Around them, the bridge crew worked in near silence. They had all seen the holos of what the Judicator had done to the colony at Kepler 186f. They knew what would happen to Earth if they failed. The Council fleet emerged from FTL in a blaze of light. First came the escorts, 100 warships forming a protective wall, and then the dreadnought itself. The Judicator was a monster, a black silhouette blotting out the stars, its weapons glowing like molten eyes. The comms crackled to life. "Humans," a voice intoned, deep and resonant, "this is the Council's final command. Power down your defenses, surrender your fleets, and prepare for occupation. You have 1 hour." Reynolds stared at the transmission for a long moment, then keyed the response. "This is General Marcus Reynolds of Earth Command," he said, his voice calm, almost cold. "We're done talking." He nodded to Harlow. "Fire." The Vanguard came alive. Engines roared, shields flared, and the ship surged from Titan's shadow like a leviathan rising from the deep. Its main cannon, a weapon the size of a skyscraper, locked onto the Judicator and fired. The beam was blinding, a column of white-hot energy that lanced across space and slammed into the dreadnought's forward shields. The impact lit up the void like a second sun. "Direct hit," Cole reported. "Their forward shields are down to 60%. The Council fleet responded instantly. Lances of blue and gold energy stabbed toward the Vanguard, rocking the supercarrier as its shields flared. Warning klaxons howled, the deck shuddered beneath their feet. "Return fire," Harlow barked. Human carriers, destroyers, and rail platforms hidden across Titan orbit opened up all at once, saturating space with fire. Torpedo salvos ripped through the first wave of escorts. Rail slugs tore apart a cruiser, sending its hull spiraling into Saturn's rings. But the Judicator kept coming. Its main lance charged, the glow building to an almost unbearable brilliance. "Brace," someone shouted. The beam struck. The Vanguard's shields screamed as the blast slammed into them, dropping their strength by nearly half. Consoles sparked, crew were thrown from their stations. "We can't take another hit like that," Cole shouted. "Then we make sure they don't get the chance," Reynolds said. "Bring us in close," Harlow ordered. The helmsman hesitated. "Admiral, if we close to that range, we end this," Harlow barked. "Take us in." The Vanguard roared forward, weaving through the crossfire like a predator closing on its prey. Strike craft swarmed ahead, clearing a path, sacrificing themselves to keep the dreadnought's point defenses busy. "Main cannon charging," Cole called. 30 seconds to full power. "Hold steady," Harlow growled, gripping the arm of his chair as the ship rocked under another volley. On the viewscreen, the Judicator loomed ever closer, its hull a mountain of armor and death. Its own lance was charging again, light spilling across the void. 15 seconds. Another blast struck the Vanguard. Shields dropped to 30%. A fire broke out on the port side. Damage control teams scrambled. 10 seconds. "Give me everything you've got," Reynolds roared. The main gun reached full charge. "Fire," Harlow ordered. The Vanguard's primary cannon unleashed its fury. This time, the beam didn't just crack the Judicator's shields, it punched through them entirely. The blast struck the dreadnought's core, ripping through decks, tearing apart its spine. For a moment, the massive ship seemed to freeze, its glow flickering, and then it exploded in a blinding eruption that turned night into day. The shockwave rippled through space, slamming into the Vanguard's hull, rattling every bolt and beam. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Judicator but glowing debris. The battle was over. Across the warfront, Council ships began to jump out, retreating in every direction. What had been intended as the final strike to crush humanity had become their greatest humiliation. On the Vanguard's bridge, silence reigned for a moment. Then the crew erupted into cheers, exhausted but triumphant. Reynolds didn't cheer. He stood at the viewport, staring at the debris field. "It's done," Cole said quietly, stepping beside him. "For now," Reynolds said. "But this war changed everything. The galaxy just saw that the Council can be beaten." Weeks later, the Grand Chamber met in uneasy silence. The Arbiter's light was dimmer than ever, its voice brittle. "Humanity cannot be compelled," it said simply. "They have chosen their own path." No one argued. The Council had ruled for millennia, but now, for the first time, they were no longer feared. On Earth, President Hayes stood before the United Nations Assembly, her speech broadcast to every colony and every ship. "We have paid dearly," she said, her voice carrying the weight of the dead. "But we have proven that freedom is worth the fight. The galaxy will remember this day not because we won a war, but because we refused to kneel." Around the world, in bunkers, shipyards, and homes, humanity exhaled as one. And somewhere in the void, the galaxy held its breath. The Council's reign was broken. The future was no longer theirs to dictate, and perhaps, for the first time in history, it belonged to everyone.